Hello and welcome everyone. So I am back with another update to my plugin Gas Associate. It has been renamed to Myra because Gas Associate was really not a nice name for a plugin, and I was using Microsoft Word synonyms to find a suitable name for my plugin. Yeah, it was before the AI existed. Okay, well now it has been renamed to Myra. Basically it's Mini-Lyra or Myra. Yeah, play on words. For me personally, Lyra was a bit overwhelming, bit too complex, and I wanted something easier for myself and for other beginners that didn't need to use C++ to implement game playability system. But we all know that game playability system is really powerful, and we cannot work on it without C++. At least that I know of. As of Unreal Engine 5.7, we cannot create attribute sets inside of blueprints. That has to be done in C++. So this plugin aims to remove that barrier and allows you to create attributes, everything related to gases, a game playability system inside of blueprints and while staying in engine. So basically this has been updated, and now it comes with a wiki page that has all the documentation that you need to start working on this plugin. And basically this is still in beta. I am looking for feedback to further improve this plugin before its final release. If you have any features or requests, please do let me know. So basically this video is going to serve as a quick start for this plugin, and I'm going to be going over all of the features that are necessary to get started working with this plugin one by one. So the first feature that I want to show is how to use attribute set wizard to generate attributes while staying inside the engine and without ever needing to touch C++. So basically what I have over here is a data asset, a custom data asset of the type Myra attribute definition that can be used to create attribute sets, define attribute sets, and then use the plugin to create them automatically. So the way you do this is just go to your content drawer and just search for data asset, this one, and search for Myra attribute definition, this one, and you just create this asset and just start working on this. So I have already created one for this example, AD rifle weapon. So for example, I want to create attributes that are going to be needed by a weapon. I've just named the attribute as rifle weapon. I have created an attribute clip size, set a default value of 10, and we are also going to create a max attribute that is going to be used to clamp this value so it doesn't go beyond this value. Okay. And there's something called meta attributes. Right now this plugin is only using meta attributes for damage and healing that are provided by default, and another attribute of damage rate which has a value of 5. It does not have a max attribute. Okay. And it's also handling the replication for multiplayer games. Okay, so once you have created this kind of data asset, you can go to tools, attribute set wizard, and just select that AD rifle weapon. We have this combat attribute definition and RPG attribute definition as examples that are included inside of the plugins. RPG attribute has already been compiled and included, but it will be removed in the future version of the plugin. So let's go ahead and select this one, and I'm going to generate, but it's going to throw an error because the files are already existing. I've already compiled this, but just to show you what happens, I'm going to check this mark and select generate attribute. It's going to show this dialog with the instructions. Okay. Just press OK, close this thing, close the editor. I want to point out I have provided this clean UI build script that can be used to cleanly build Unreal Engine projects. Just go ahead and press this button to download this script, and inside of your project root you want to open your terminal and just run this script, clean UI build. Okay, it's going to ask you to clear the binaries, intermediate, and solution file for the Visual Studio. Once this is done, just go ahead and shift right click on this if you are on Windows 11 and select this generate Visual Studio project files. So it's going to generate the project files once it's done. Okay, so I've opened up Visual Studio. Once it has generated the Visual Studio project files, and you can see we have this attribute set generated over here. You really don't need to do anything. It has generated all of the necessary C++ code for those attributes. You really don't need to touch C++ beyond this point. This is the only Visual Studio interface that you'll ever see in your life while using this plugin. But I would highly recommend you learn C++. It's the AI era. You must learn C++. Okay. Anyways, once it has generated this, just go to build and select build solution. And it's going to start building the solution. We'll return once it's done. Okay, so for instance, done compiling, you'll see something like some succeeded and 0 failed. This 0 failed is really important. This should be 0. Okay, so once it's done, just go ahead and launch the engine. Okay, so the engine has launched, and I want to show you those attributes are now showing over here, which we had compiled earlier. So easy, like so easy, without even touching C++. We have created these attributes. Really, this plugin focuses on data-driven systems to create all of these things and reduce the headache while using the game delivery system. Yeah, okay. So this is one of the cool features of this plugin. Next up, I want to point out another important change from my previous iteration of this plugin. This is that the ability system component now exists on the player state class rather than directly on the character itself. And you can configure all of these ability system component related functionality on the player state rather than directly on the character. The reason for this change is that character can die and respawn inside of level many times while the player state persists across a gaming session. So really it makes sense to have the ability system component on the player state rather than the character, because all the attributes will die when the player dies, and it is really important for multiplayer. However, I would also recommend to use this kind of thing in single player. If however you want to do quick prototyping, or for whatever reason you want to use the ability system component on the character class rather than the player start class, you can go to class defaults and just search for this use player state ASC and set this to false. So it's going to start using the ability system component on the character. If this is true, then this ability system component will reference the ability system component of the Myra player state. Next up, I'm going to talk about the several important things that come together to form the pawn extension component and pawn data. These are the really way to define your character for the game that you are making. I tried to make it very less related to one genre of the games, and it should be generic and fit on all type of game, whether you're making first person, third person, simulation games, racing games, all type of stuff. So basically what this pawn extension component does is grants the abilities, grants the attribute sets, and the input configuration to trigger the abilities all in one place using this pawn data. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example pawn data that's provided with the plugin. So what it does is grant this ability set and input configuration and input mapping context. Okay, so let's look at this ability set. What this does is grants the abilities that are required by the character and the attribute set that are required by the character, and even the gameplay effects that can be used to initialize these attribute sets. So really all in one package. You can initialize your character with all the default abilities and even grant them further by using this ability set we'll see later on. And this is the major change. And next thing, we're going to look at this input config. Basically this shows what input action is bound to which input tag. So basically you don't need to use that try activate ability by class, try activate ability by tag. This is automatically handled by this plugin. You just define a tag that can be used to trigger the ability, and inside of your pawn data you can define this, inside of this ability set you can define the ability tag, input tag that can be used to drive the ability. Okay, now we're going to look at an example of using this. So if I remove this from over here and just let's turn this on to show debug, so we can see what's happening inside of the system component. If I press play, what you can see is I only have this health, max health, damage, and healing. These are the default attributes that are present on the character. I made this design decision because damage and healing are meta attributes, and those have to be done in C++. So to make your life easier, and mine also, I added those inside of the default attribute set that a character has. Okay, so right now I don't have the mana, stamina attributes over here. Okay, and if I press left mouse button, I cannot activate ability. Okay, even though for the left mouse button I have this input action, this one, primary ability, it's not triggering because this input action has not been granted to this character via the player controller. So once I go to the pawn extension component and add that Myra pawn data, compile and save this, and now if I play this, what you can see is I have this mana, max mana, stamina, and max stamina. And if I press the left mouse button, you can see I can trigger the ability. It's also showing me a cooldown time, after which I can activate the ability again. So pawn data really makes it easy to grant, remove the abilities, attributes, input configuration for the ability. And another thing I just want to point out is I am not triggering the ability by using that try activate ability by class, try activate by ability tag. I'm just pressing the button. That's it. All of that is being handled by the input, this thing, input configuration, and this ability set input tag on the ability. Really so easy, like so easy, so easy. Next up, I want to talk about some of the many features that have been exposed to blueprints for easier use of gameplay system. So for example, you want to pick up an ability, it's going to grant its own ability set to you, and you can fire the weapon. As you can see, we have clip size that is decreasing, and once it's done, we can also drop the weapon. So if I go with the remove ability set, it has been removed. Let's take a look at the code that is driving this thing. So basically what this ability set AS rifle is doing is just granting the ability GA fire and the rifle weapon attribute set that we just compiled earlier in this video. And basically what this does is just triggers this on the character. We are going to be activating that by class because it has not been granted by the pawn data. And once it's triggered, we just go to this GA fire. Basically what it's doing is just getting the child actor that is present on this weapon actor, setting it up and calling the interface fire weapon. Once the ability is granted, we are doing this thing, just setting the child actor to the weapon class and getting the ability system component and granting this ability set to that. And once we go over this block over here, it's just simply removing that ability set from the character class. So really everything is encapsulated in its own logic. The weapon doesn't know the character attributes, and the character doesn't know about the weapon attributes and the abilities. It only finds them out once it has been granted those abilities set, and that can be removed at runtime. So it really makes it easy to use this plugin for gameplay system, and further information about them can be found on the wiki page of this. Okay, it lists all of the features that are available in each of the major classes that are present in this plugin. So this is it for this video. I really hope that you use this plugin, and please do provide feedback on how useful this plugin is or what kind of more features you want in these plugins. I really wanted to keep this simple for the beginners, so that gameplay system is a really powerful system but really difficult to get around. And especially Lyra project was really the epic way of doing the gameplay system, but it was fairly overwhelming for me. I really couldn't understand it fully even now. So I really hope this plugin helps you in your projects. Please provide feedback on this on my Discord, on the YouTube comments, anywhere really. So I really hope you start using this plugin and enjoy it as much as I loved creating it. So this is it for this video. Thank you very much.